Yo, 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 it's ODB, aka the Lincoln Addict. Wanted to hit you guys with another quick video. I'm getting ready here Saturday morning to start a little project. If you're in the lincolnforum.net, you'll see that I posted this on my build thread. If you're not in the Lincoln Forum and you're looking to maybe buy one of these cars or you own one, it's definitely the place to be. Now, I do know that social media is kind of pretty much taken over. Because you can go in a Facebook group like ours, Lincoln Addict, and you can pretty much get an answer right away. But if you're looking for good documentation or build threads or maybe searching certain keywords, which you can also do on Facebook, the lincolnforum.net is a great place. I love uploading photos there and things like that. It's a little tricky. It's not as easy as Facebook in terms of uploading photos, but that's a whole nother video. Here's what I got going down. So last weekend I drove the car, Smuggler's Blues, the 64 Lincoln Continental that you guys know that I own, triple blue convertible. And basically the car died on the expressway. Tony Bospolin wasn't far away, so he cruised over so we could kind of diagnose it. And the car was getting spark, and what we ended up figuring out was the points were bad. Now, this is the, I don't know, second, probably third set of points that have been on this car. And after Tony had ran home, I didn't actually have extra set of points. Many of you know how important it is to carry an extra set because had I, had some in my glove box, we could have easily changed the points and got the car going again. We did find a couple of other challenges, which I'll talk about. But basically, if you look here, we don't know what happened, but the contact is just gone that it contacts with. So, if I remember correctly, there's supposed to be a little piece here. But regardless, these weren't working. So, on the way home, he ran home, got his trailer was still hooked up. And what we did was, within about 45 minutes, he was back. And we stopped at Napa on the way home. Naturally going, hey, we want to get it fixed. We unloaded it from the trailer with the winch right where it's at. And I had picked up these, which is all they had in stock at my local Napa. Picked up new points, which are on the car right now. And then a condenser, which they didn't have. I had to go next door to get. But pretty much got home and could get the car started. What we ended up finding, and I'm not going to show you right now since the hood's kind of closed, but basically on the spark plug wires, which these are not them, but I've had these on, the ones that are on the car, I've had them on there a couple years, and I knew that one of them had a little burn in it, and it's because, with older cars, especially these Lincolns, the manifolds get so freaking hot. Okay, now again, I know that's for all cars, don't get me wrong, but for whatever reason, the amount of heat on these 430s and 462s is insane, and I think it has to do with just the way, there's really nowhere for the heat to go. It pretty much, if you look at the aprons on these Lincolns, the header manifolds are right up next to those aprons. So regardless, once we put the points and condenser in, it still was running funky. And when we kind of observed a little bit more, I don't know if we ended up doing this when we were diagnosing it or if it just happened the last few times I've driven it, but a couple of the plug wires were just thrashed. I mean, they were really melted through, and the car just wasn't firing the way it should. So that kind of prompted me. I said, you know what? Number one, I'm sick of changing these points. And I knew about Pertronix because I put it on my other Lincoln, which I still own, a 67 with a 462. I can't remember if I put the 1 or the 2. So you got the Igniter 2 here. There's a 1, and then there's also a 3. But here's the whole sell on these. Never change points again. But basically, after I got home and I realized, the car was, I wasn't going to be able to drive it that day unless I, ran back up and or not ran back up, but if, I was basically gonna have to change the plug wires and things like that, which I kind of had anticipated. And I said, you know what? It was late in the day. Went inside and I made a decision. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take these back, which I haven't put on yet, haven't even really taken out, and I'm going to upgrade finally. Now, there's a misconception. A lot of people think that this product isn't made well. The original products back in the 90s, early 2000s, some folks seem to think, oh, since they started making them overseas, whatever, they don't work as well. I called Pertronix and I talked to them a few minutes. They claim that this is made in the U.S. still, which I don't see anything on the box that the igniter is. This, I think the coil has a reference that it's made in Mexico or China, right there. But regardless, there's some people that have had issues with this. And I know Tony Boss Bolin supposedly has had issues with it. I mean, I've seen it on a couple of the cars that he's had. He's had the igniter one, and luckily he would have an extra one. But those, retail prices are around $80, I think it is. So I kind of said to myself, you know what, I'm going to make the plunge. I did some research in the Lincoln forum. I talked to Petronix. I talked to a couple other people by searching in Facebook, and they pretty much haven't had an issue. So I said to myself, what are the key things I need to know? So when I called Petronix, they told me that if you run the igniter 2, it has a safety in it. So if you leave your key on by accident, let's say, you had the radio going or whatever, or you were showing someone something and you forgot about it. In the Pertronix 1, what'll happen is, this is just an example, if you had points and you left your key on, I don't know if it does it every time or if this just happens to be right in this exact spot based upon the rotation of the motor, but the points can burn out from that. So many of you guys are more of experts or mechanics, you'll know about that. But with the Pertronix 2, it has a safety apparently built in where if you accidentally leave your key on, it won't burn out the igniter 2. This, I want to say retail was like 130, something like that, 120, versus the igniter 1, which was around 80. And this is according to memory and Amazon prices. They said with the igniter 2, you have to have a 0.6 ohm coil. So they obviously sell this. This wasn't too bad. I want to say it was 40 or 50, I think. And I started asking them about MSD wires, which I ran on a previous project. And he said, well, listen, if you don't know, which I didn't, they have their own plug wires, okay? In addition to that, I ran these on my 462, which is still like more of a project car. You can buy these on eBay, sleeves, boots, whatever you want to call them. What these are supposed to do is help keep the heat off the plug wires, but it's also a little bit added protection so that these don't easily get burned up, okay? So I got these. These were around 20 bucks, depending on the seller. You'll find them for 18 to 20, 22, 23 bucks with free shipping. And they were supposed to be delivered like on a Monday, this coming Monday, which was a little bit of a downer, but they literally came on Wednesday, I want to say. Wednesday or Thursday. So that was pretty cool. Now, the one thing, and I don't have my little tool over here, but you can kind of see how these are going to sit in here. The sleeves, I tried messing with this last night for a quick minute. I'm not 100% sure with these 8mm wires if you would be able to get the sleeve on if the ends were already on the plug wires, okay? It seemed pretty close, and you got to be able to get them on there, I would think. But the good news is, I'm going to make my own links. I'm going to start that in a few minutes. I'm going to make my links here with these plug wires, and then the ends, which I don't have, or actually, they give you the ends over here, and you basically crimp them on. Now, I had never done this until I worked on my 462. I made a set of MSD wires. That was the setup I was running on there, and it wasn't very hard. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, of course, and that's how I figured it out. And I actually bought a little tool from MSD, which again, I don't have handy right here, but that little tool allows for you to put the plug wire in here and then put it in a vise and basically crimp the vise down, and it will crimp these on to the plug wires. Okay, so that's not as hard as you would think. That's one advantage if you don't want to do that, to going just with one off the part shelf. These are already pre-cut. Now, the ones I had on there were kind of some cheap ones, and the only one I think I have handy is the coil wire. Many of you guys will know on the up to 65, I think it was, where the coil was at, it was such a pain on these cars. So this one actually has a 67 coil mount. I think 66, 67 is the same, and it moves it. And I'm glad I left this piece of duct tape on here, because when we first got this car running, which would have been early spring of 2018, after we had went through a bunch of stuff, I remember we were having some sort of issue, and I don't know if this was arcing out or what, but we ended up putting a piece of duct tape on here, and this reminded me that these have been on here a couple years, so it's not like I just bought them. And these are the normal ones you can buy off the shelf, and you know, they're cheap and they work, but some of them are a little bit longer than they need to be. And what that was causing, and again, I don't have the hood up, of course, what that was causing was you know, the little spark plug wire holders that go on top of the valve covers and stuff, you know, those just pop off and things like that. And I don't know, I haven't researched it a lot. I'm not 100% certain what exists for the Lincolns to like really route the spark plug wires nice. Of course, if you got a Chevy 350 or, you know, a lot of those like hot rods and stuff, you can go on eBay and just buy those, what they call spark plug wire holders, right? Now, there's some cheap things I've seen, like the plastic ones. There's like I think a 4-part kit where it kind of holds the wires in 2 different spots. The main thing for those is it's keeping them routed off of the manifolds and things like that. So the one good thing about what I'm going to do again is I'm going to take a little bit of time today, take each plug wire off one at a time. I'll look at it first to see, is it a little long? Like, can it be a little bit shorter? And then when I cut those wires, I'll, you know, crimp the other ends on, and then that way they'll be routed about as tight as they can be. Now, I'm not going to make them super, super tight, just because I've been there before where I cut things where it's just like, okay, this is perfect, and it's just, it's too taut. So, I am going to, you know, kind of take some care to do it the best I can. But with that being said, since these ends are not on here, this is going to allow for me, I'm going to slide each of these on there. Even if they would go on there, this is obviously going to be way easier. So I'll take each of the 8 wires and slide the sleeves on. I'll put, you know, I'll take one off at a time from the motor, from the plugs, and I'll probably just pop this bad boy on there, or at least sit it on there pretty close. It doesn't have to be snapped on, right? And then I'll take a look and see, where do I want to cut this? I'll make a mark. And then with that little tool that MSD sells, it's only about this big. It actually has a piece where you put this in there and you put a razor blade and you spin the wire kind of back and forth as you hold the razor blade, and it will cut this sheathing or whatever you want to call it, insulation, off of here. And then you'll be able to pull that insulation. Now, at some point, once I make the cut mark, I'm going to have to cut that cleanly first, right? And I don't have the specific pliers, if you will, to crimp it on. But that little MSD tool, once you cut this and then you cut the sheathing back, which will look like basically that, these, and again, if you watch other videos, these fold back. You'll put the end on, which I showed you a little bit ago. You'll put it into that little MSD tool. You'll put it in the vise, and that will crimp this down. Now, again, I'm not an expert with this stuff. Some of you might be thinking, well, what's up with the black, right? When I talked to Petronix, they said, just like other videos I've watched, that's conductive. And my understanding is you leave this on. So basically, it's going to go back like that, and that's all there is to it. And you crimp the end on. But I think the main thing is what I'll do is this is only going to take a minute. The other one's already loose. That'll slide right in, right? So then I can figure out the length to the coil. This is super simple. There's videos out there. Super simple to install. You literally put this little black, I don't know if they call this a spacer or what they call it. You put that on there, like your cap is off, or excuse me, your rotor is off. You slide that on. You loosely tighten this, right, the Pertronix on there, and there's a little black, what do you call it? It's like a spacer that you slide in between there so that this is touching the spacer and the spacer's touching that, and you tighten it down. That's all there is to it. This is super simple. So really, I'll put this on really quick. This is gonna go on. It's only gonna take a minute. These, obviously, is gonna take just a few seconds to slide those bad boys on. Really, the only time that I'm gonna have is taking each plug wire off, making sure that it's the length that I want it, cutting this, and then crimping the end on. That's it. So I'm excited to kind of step up finally. And this is one thing that I haven't upgraded on the car, because there is a guy, you could send your distributor up to Michigan, and it's Barnett. Talked to him on the phone, and we were going to send him 2 distributors that we have, Lincoln distributors. Typically you would send him yours, but if you have an extra one, he will upgrade it. I don't know if he takes the shaft out or what he does, but he is the only guy that we know of that will basically build you like an MSD style ignition setup. So it's one piece. You'll never have to deal with this stuff again. Now it's a little bit more costly. So with this, you're going to be in, I don't know, $200, $250, depending on if you get the same parts I did and you know, the sleeves and things like that. But I think my understanding, and I could be wrong here, is with the air cleaner, which I have sitting in the car right now, those will, I don't know if the air cleaner will perfectly fit. So I just was like, you know what, for now, with many people that I've talked to that have not had any challenges with this setup, I decided, hey, I'm going to go with this, roll with it. If it lasts me 2, 3, 4 years, hopefully more, great. And then at some point, I can still send my other distributor, my spare distributor, up to Barnett and then have them, they basically take that as a core, my understanding. And then he's got one on the shelf, or one he'll build right away, and then he'll mail it out. So those are your options. Part store, basic stuff, obviously. You can kind of step up to this, go with the Petronix. You see I've got the trifecta here of each of those with the sleeves. This is actually the Pertronix wire. It's an 8mm. And so you got that, or you can go with Barnett. And if you type in Barnett, I forget if it's Barnett, on Instagram, you'll see the guy. He also advertises on eBay where you can send him your motor, or you can basically, I think you have to give him your motor as a core, but he'll build a high performance Mel motor. He's the only person I know that's really doing that as a specialty. So, you know, that's something else he does, but real nice guy. I talked to him on the phone, emailed with him a couple times, and that's pretty much it. Last thing, there's not a lot of instructions with this stuff, guys. Even on the Igniter site, it'll link you to their YouTube channel. There's not a lot of videos from Pertronix. So I did check with Pertronix, and they said using the MSD, it's the same process to crimp these on. So that's why I kind of rewatched their videos to remind myself how to do it. There is a video. This is simple. You don't need a video. And then just making the plug wire ends. That's something, again, that you may choose to do. All right. More Lincoln Addict Podcast coming soon. Just trying to get through and work through all the daily life stuff. So stay tuned. Lincoln Addict Podcast, however you find podcast. It's ODB. Enjoy the weekend. We got you.